I am sitting here with Miss Jacqueline. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell about her project.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jackie Olive. I am the director, producer, and writer of Always in Season, and it's a documentary feature film that is 10 years in the making. Have been filming in communities where lynchings happened with relatives of the perpetrators and the victims who are seeking justice and reconciliation. And so I'm connecting that historic racial terrorism to racial violence today.
So, what is the oldest one that you researched?
So, between 1872 and about 1964, there were nearly 5,000 lynchings of African Americans. And lynchings happened, the victims of lynchings before that were primarily white. But the reason why I'm looking at lynchings of African Americans in particular is because African Americans were lynched with unparalleled brutality and with a higher frequency. So, during that time period, we were about 80% of the victims. And often lynching victims were tortured, they were mutilated, they were photographed, and then they were killed. And that could have happened over hours, where tens of thousands of men, women, and children came out to watch. And so it's a particular thing. And so I'm looking at that historic racial terrorism and connecting it to the case of a 17-year-old who was found hanging from a swing set in Bladensboro, North Carolina. His name is Lennon Lacey, and he was found hanging in 2014. And so, looking at the violence and how it is still impacting communities today.
How did you hear about that young man?
Yeah, so I had been filming for 4 years and thought I was finished. I'd been filming in communities where relatives of the perpetrators were looking at how to memorialize the victims, how to repair the damage, and how they might find healing in their communities. And thought that I was finished when I came across a news story about it. And my son was 17, Lennon's age at the time. And I could not imagine how a mother could deal with that kind of grief. And so I reached out to his mother, Claudia, to learn more. And the more that we talked, the more that I saw just incredible similarities between what was going on in Bladensboro around the horror that they were facing and what I had been filming, learning as I'd filmed in communities prior.
Were you able to talk to any of the families that from the older lynchings?
Yeah, so I one of the communities that is featured in the film outside of Bladensboro is in Monroe, Georgia, where a diverse group of people get together and they reenact a quadruple lynching that happened there. Two couples, the Malcolms and the Dorseys, were lynched on the Mooresford Bridge in 1946. And they do that, the reenactors do that to make sure that the victims are never forgotten. And they also believe that some of the perpetrators might still be living there. And so one of the people that I talked to and who's featured in the film is Olivia Taylor, who's a wonderful woman who came to the reenactments because her father led the Klan in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And she just came to consult on wardrobe because she realized that the wardrobe was a little off, and she came to help tweak, and then was drawn into playing one of the roles. And so Olivia talks about the a number of things, but one is the time when she had witnessed a lynching when she was 3. When her mother and her father brought her to a lynching, she and her sister. And so people like to think about this as ancient history and something that they can wall themselves off from and create distance. But one is that 1946 was a generation ago. My mother was alive. So this clearly is not ancient history. And the other thing is that the energy of it reverberates. Lynching it was a way of maintaining inequity in institutions, the same institutions that we navigate daily, policing, the criminal justice system, education, all of those institutions where you can see racial inequity going on now. Lynching was a way of maintaining those power dynamics. And so because there was massive covering up and denial about this history, we've not yet fully unpacked that and done the work that we need to do to make them more equal.
That is a very powerful subject. What is the most memorable thing that pops to mind when you were making this?
Yeah, probably the most memorable thing was meeting Claudia, and I could not imagine how I would respond in that situation. And it would make sense that she would be paralyzed by grief after finding that her son was not just killed, but may have been lynched. And to find that she is open and that she is fully present in telling his story and making sure that people understand what happened to him, and that she always has been given me incredible access, and has been open just in general in her spirit is, I think, really remarkable and really impressive.
As a filmmaker, have you worked on other projects?
Yeah, so this is my first documentary feature. I made a thesis film that was a 60-minute film that aired on PBS in 2009. So that was prior to this. And since I have made a couple of shorts and am in the process of developing three new films this year. And one is a short looking at cases similar to Lennon's. I want to do an investigative reporting piece, either a short or an episodic look at similar cases because Lennon's sadly is not an exception. The NAACP attorney who pulled together the evidence for the FBI investigation into his case, Heather Radelaide, has found that there were 20 other similar hangings of Black people publicly since 2005, and I believe that the number is greater. So it's really important that we really look at this comprehensively. And in addition, I'm planning to do a doc feature that is inspired by Marlon Riggs' Black Is, Black Ain't, that really starts to look at in the 21st century, what does it mean to be Black? And what does the Black community look like now? And then the final is a hybrid. I'm starting to open up to the idea that documentaries are not the entire world. And I want to do a hybrid that features a woman who is a death doula and featuring the families that she works with so that you get to understand as she helps them to prepare for death, how that, excuse me, opens you up as she begins to prepare for death, how that opens you up to be more present in life and to bring your relationships closer and stronger.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'm from Mississippi, and so it's really important for me to bring my film here and to bring it home to the state. And I'm really excited that it's a closing night film, and my mom and my family, my sister, and my nieces will be here to see it.
Always fun when you can share stuff like this with family. It really is. I'm glad you've done this project. And if you had one part of the message that you could tell everyone, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say to look at where your family histories intersect, where your family stories intersect with this history, because I can guarantee that where you live now or where you grew up, a lynching happened there. And so to understand how we show up in these stories is really important to get a clearer understanding of who we are and our families and how we can impact our communities and find healing and repair around not just this issue of historic racial terrorism, but all the things that, all the ways that we are moving in the society anyway. And so, in all likelihood, there's a school that you're connected with, either your child or your grandchildren or your friends. And so, to look at your schools and housing and banking, and to look at the inequities and your responsibility, I think is really hugely important for all of us.
Thank you so much for sitting and talking with us today.